Greetings sailors and welcome back to all of Warships, and a pretty decent game I had in the Emerald a couple of days ago. This is part of my regrind of basically most of my lines in order to essentially bank up a load of research points. There's something I've not paid that much attention to, but there's stuff occasionally like the Kitakami event where actually being able to dip into a huge pile of research points would be quite useful. So obviously I'm in the position of having quite a lot of lines to reset, which is fine, but it also then means having to actually like regrind them because I don't have that much free XP. My free XP tends to get spent on things, and I did manage to reset a couple of lines and just free XP back up, but I didn't have enough to do like all of my lines, so I'm gonna have to replay some ships, but that's fine. There's a lot of ships that it's actually kind of nice to go back and revisit, and Emerald was one that I had previously held on to anyway, so it's not like it's a ship I haven't played in ages and ages. It's not great. It's absolutely not great. Of all the tier 5 cruisers, this is probably one of the weaker ones. The main thing it has going for it is that it has smoke, and the torpedoes are actually not bad in terms of their range, the number of them, and the amount of damage that they do. But in terms of its actual firepower, you're going to be struggling to get high amounts of damage done. There is a noticeable difference from playing this going up to the Leander in terms of the effectiveness of the guns, and it's not that you get that many more barrels with the Leander, it's the shells. The AP shells on the Leander are just generally better. This is also a very fragile ship, but if you play any of the British light cruiser line, you just kind of have to get used to that. There's definitely an element of RNG whenever you play any of these, in terms of, you know, am I going to get deleted by this next incoming battleship salvo or not? So you can do as much as you can to make yourself inconspicuous. I'm trying to use the island here, for example, to limit what can fire at me. But that also then, of course, limits the amount of damage that you're doing in return, because your shells are not great. As I've said, you really need to keep up the rate of fire as much as possible to try and do any amount of damage. But we're in a situation here where I've got plenty of allies with me, and there are other ships that are taking fire at the moment, so it's not just one ship going in and taking all of the attention. Although unfortunately for this Pensacola, he's about to eat a bunch of torpedoes, so I might get some attention at this point. But actually all that's left now is the Hatsuharu and a submarine. I mean, so far seems to be going kind of okay. We've lost like as many ships as the enemy team has, but we do have one cap, and if we can basically clear out the Hatsuharu and the sub, we can have this other cap as well. In theory, the SAP kind of that the British light cruisers have even is very good against destroyers, but that's only true if they're sitting broadside. If they are angled at all, yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. And of course the single mounts of the Emerald do make things a little more tricky in that regard as well, especially if you're manoeuvring and you just can't get that many shots into the target, and you know, then your shells actually have to hit the small target. So yeah, it's not necessarily as good anywhere as good as its later down the line ships for dealing with destroyers. But if you do manage to, you know, get that situation where you're close range and that's it, sat broadside, yeah, you can do some decent damage. On that note, actually, I'd quite like to see Emerald's sister ship in game as a premium HMS Enterprise, and there was actually a period where Enterprise was fitted with, I think it was Enterprise rather than Emerald, with a twin forward mount in place of the two single mounts. So that might be... I don't know. I would just like to have HMS Enterprise in the game. I've long been a fan of the class IRL, just because, I don't know, they're in that interesting transitionary period between First World War kind of era ships and the Second World War ships. Like, you can see the clear line of influence from Emerald through to the Leanders and the Arathusas, and then of course from them you get on to the town classes and the further ships down the line. Well, there aren't actually that many further ships down the line after that. There's Tiger, and I'm trying to think if there's any other classes that kind of follow that. And there's the Dido class as well, but they're kind of more of a disconnected... I wouldn't class them as an evolution, really. They were sort of a side branch. I don't know what you would call them, really, but anyway. So just the sub left. This, well, actually, no, not just the sub. This Hawkins went way down to the 1-2 line and then has come back up, but I still got the October Revolution with me. And here's where I thought, maybe I could use some smoke, because Hawkins isn't great either, but it does have 8-inch guns, and those could potentially hurt, and so why not use a smoke and use the spotting that I know I'm going to get from allies, because that's always a consideration when you're trying to smoke up, is am I going to get spotting? Annoyingly, sometimes you don't, or you think you're getting spotting and then you smoke up and it turns out the person you thought was spotting, like in a destroyer or another smoke cruiser, they've smoked up as well. So yeah, it can be a bit of a mixed bag sometimes. Sometimes you plot down smoke and then realise you just wasted a consumable. Anyway, they're turning broadside, so I can actually have a chance to do some damage, but then the October Revolution just polishes them off, so okay. Oh well. That just leaves the sub, and if I had some airdropped depth charges, well, they probably wouldn't have the range at tier 5 anyway to get this U-69, but yeah, no, Emerald has got over the side depth charges, so you have to be like right up over them before it does anything, as we saw earlier. It's not a great anti-submarine ship. Any cruiser where you have to be actually over the sub, you're going to be struggling in terms of dealing with subs. So while all this has been happening, well, you can see what's occurred. There's one cruiser left up north, the Kirov, who managed to disengage and get unspotted. Everyone else got taken care of, but having said that, you know, there's only also 4 enemy ships left at this point. They do have now, or about to have, 2 caps though, so they will have the ticking points advantage, and we just kind of need to get in there and deal with them. I'm doing alright health-wise. I've used a heal, and my health is, I mean, as a percentage of my total health, it's not bad. However, it's Emerald, and that one remaining enemy battleship could easily just delete me. I could also eat torpedoes from something, which would be also pretty bad. It's never, you know, it's never a guaranteed thing. Whatever your health is at the moment in a ship like the Emerald doesn't really mean much in terms of what your health might be like 5 seconds from now. It just depends on who's looking at you. This October Revolution, though, was clearly a slightly more tempting target, but I still took a hit from the Ramat, which was just... of course it set me on fire, of course it did. We also know that the Nicholas is here as well as the sub, so it would be nice to have Hydro back right now, but it's still on cooldown, annoyingly. The sub is going for the October Revolution more than anything else at the moment, though, which is nice for me. It gives me a little bit of space to work with, but they did just take a fair whack of damage from that sub, though, so we kind of need to deal with both of these quickly whilst the Derflinger is still a little distracted, although having said that, you know, they've just finished off the Kirov, so yeah. Our sub, by the way, charging this smoke screen. Really wasn't sure what the thought process was there, that they were going to shotgun the Nicholas maybe, but there have been changes to submarines, as we shall see. That's what we call foreshadowing. And so I'm not entirely sure why the U-69 was being quite that aggressive, but anyway, they were. Fortunately for them, the Nicholas was just kind of I mean, they hadn't stuck around in the smoke screen, which was the sensible thing to do. I was able to catch that, what was it, I had Saharu earlier on with my hydro that way. They weren't directly in the smoke screen, but they were still loitering around directly behind it. They were actually trying to get away, the Nicholas. It's just they couldn't get away fast enough. So, yeah, that didn't work out so well for them. Anyway, good hit from the October Revolution there. Derflinger is now looking very unhealthy, and, well, there is the last other remaining player, the submarine, so I guess I can just turn and go for that then, because if I don't manage to, like, look at what my shells are doing to this Derflinger, and the answer is not a lot. It's really annoying having to deal with battleships in particular with the Emeralds. It just feels so completely lackluster. But yeah, that just leaves the sub. We know they've gone this way, so it's just a matter of seeing if I can spot them. And I do have Hydro back at this point, so that's fine. Now, prior to the most recent patch, this would have been a really, really dangerous situation. And I would have been in severe risk of being shotgunned. And in fact, I am in severe risk of being shotgunned. But because torpedoes now, for reasons that, you know, totally are based in real life and not the severe contortions needed to make submarines work in really any capacity in World of Warships, torpedoes launched from a sub now do less damage the closer they are to you when they hit you. So the less travel distance, the less damage, essentially, up to a certain threshold. Because they were so close to me, it tickled a bit, but whereas previously that would have just absolutely deleted me, it now means that I was able to actually finish them off and get a Kraken. But if it hadn't been me, it would have been the October Revolution. We were both sitting on 4 kills at that point. Both had 1900 base XP, so yeah, I think we both did pretty well out of that. But, you know, any game in an Emerald where you just manage to survive to the end and it's a win is, you know, an accomplishment. If you manage to get 5 kills on top of that, then congratulations, that's just the icing on the cake. It wasn't even that much damage, but it was damage to things like subs and other cruisers and, of course, destroyers. And as I occasionally like to remind people, it is the percentage of somebody's health pool that you've done that determines your reward at the end of it, rather than the number in hit points. Anyway, so that is it for this hopefully amusing little Emerald replay. It's not a ship you get to see in replays very often, so that's part of why I decided to also show it off. And if you did enjoy it, well, you can do all the usual things down underneath it. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more.